Greetings, brothers and sisters. I got a bunch of stuff with Don Lemons coming up. Which is everything is so messed up. I'll get into that. Like just so, Idiocracy is clearly like come in 2020. I think Idiocracy and chaos go hand in hand. The year of chaos. Let's start here with Ari Mibla.
Here are some basic facts. We have
You got facts over there at MSNBC? You got facts? You got facts over there at MSNBC there, dude?
major problems in the Middle East on a ton of fronts. The Trump administration has pursued these policies to try to contain Iran and had some success. And yet, the Trump administration is right now clashing over its own intelligence leaks, which the government is responsible for, and clashing with reporters, which is a kind of odd place to be at the highest levels of government amidst all of these important Middle East and international issues. At the Pentagon today, things got downright chaotic when the defense secretary took on reporters.
Because you, and I mean specifically you, the press, specifically you, the press corps, because you cheer against Trump so hard, it's like in your DNA and in your blood to cheer against Trump, because you want him not to be successful so bad, you have to cheer against.
Well, first of all, what the F do you mean that it's in your DNA? Like, what are you talking about in their DNA? What do you mean it's in their DNA? Like, this is a biological reaction? This is a genetic reaction to Trump? Like, why? Because he's a ginger? Or like something? I mean, what do you think is triggered in their DNA to cheer against him? Like, I mean, I know he's using DNA in a different way here, but it's stupid. Like, it's just everything stupid about what they say here. Here, let's go forward.
Against the efficacy of these strikes. You have to hope maybe they weren't effective.
Now,
So, the media and the Democrats are never going to like Trump. And that has everything to do with Trump, right? Like the media, and I mean, it has everything to do with Fox News. Because Fox News started this, we're just going to go off on Democrats. And it fucking worked. I mean, viewers-wise. Like, viewers loved it. We're not going to cheer their successes. We're going to try to undermine everything that they do. And we're going to report on them in such a skewed, prejudicial way, right? And he was on Fox News, and that's what Fox News, they broke, they cracked the code of what people wanted to see. People wanted to see really partisan politics, right? And so, and then, I mean, let's go like deeper to this thing, that there is a plan here to divide and conquer, that to destroy America the way it has to be destroyed, because the debt and it's really the people. America can't have the same lifestyle. America isn't going to be number one like it's been. We're number one. We're number one. That's not going to happen. There'll be a point where Americans will stop cheering that shit. You'll see the Olympics, and Americans won't be saying we're number one anymore. Like there'll be just a few stragglers. When Americans realize that we're no longer the, dominant power, and don't care, these young kids, even if America was number one, they're so depressed. These kids who, this latest generation, as they grow older, are growing up in the world of AI now, and I mean the other generations growing up on the internet, and like there's just an apathy there and whatever. And so, but the thing is that Trump is a complete asshole to the Democrats and these people. He provokes people. He trolls them. And you wonder why people don't like him and don't want to root for him, right? He's obnoxious. And you take no responsibility for that. So, And Trump is, and the Republicans couldn't wait to pounce on Joe Biden. You're saying that you guys wanted Joe Biden to succeed? Are you honestly saying that you thought Joe Biden should succeed? This just his hair, right? This greasy hair. He's like this. If there's like one of those romantic comedies where the woman's the protagonist, the young single woman's a protagonist, or a married woman or whatever she is, and he's her husband or boyfriend that browbeats her and dismisses her and diminishes her, right? He's the villain. Like, he's just that guy. And just, all these things that he claims to be. Like he said, he found God, he found Christ when he was, his mom says he was a piece of shit. She wrote him a letter that she sent to his ex. He cheated on with his producer, and then cheated and impregnated her. He had his second wife that had like 3 kids, and then he cheated on her with his producer, and then his producer, and then he cheated on with another woman who claimed that he sexually assaulted her, and so this guy was, he's hitting for the fucking cycle, showing up at work with alcohol still, oozing out of his pores from the night before, at Fox Morning Show, and just no real experiences of someone that would lead the Defense Department, but someone who just Trump liked because, Trump thought he was, first of all, he licked Trump's taint, and second of all, Trump thought he could speak well to an audience, in front of a camera. He's good in front of a camera, and so, this guy then said he found God, but when you find God, if you're a godly person, the first thing that you have to submit to is that everything happens for a reason, because God has a plan. That everything is happening because God has a plan. And so the victim consciousness has to go. Constantly being a poor me, everyone's out to get Trump, and it's Trump, and poor Trump, and everyone's this poor Trump. Why are they so mean to me? Why are they so mean to him? They're so mean to Trump. They're so mean to him. And so the victim consciousness is something that I always talk about. It's like the worst thing. And, it's responsible. All criminals who are abusers think of themselves as victims. When I worked with the assault cycle, with kids who were sex offenders in 2 different treatment centers. And it's a good cycle, and the entry into the cycle is a victim stance or a victim statement, right? And I talk about this all the time. And so you guys probably know how I feel about it. And when you make yourself a victim, you are denying the presence of God, and you are saying that things happen randomly and chaotically and are not fair. And that there's no reason why this stuff is happening to me or everybody else, right? When the system collapses, everyone's going to feel like a victim, because they're going to be like, oh my God, where's all my stuff? Where's all my stuff? Why, the stuff? And so, but we all see that anybody in the truth community, pretty much anybody who just has a pulse and the ability to observe and be honest about what's going on, would realize that there's a total reason for a collapse, right? That the collapse is justified. If you see all the shit that America's pulled and to hurt other countries and to take other countries' resources and all the shit America's done, and the debt, and then just the level of degradation of an idiocracy from generation to generation, of course we should collapse, right? It's just there. And so this victim consciousness is this guy and Trump have. It's just, that somehow the only reason that the media is speaking up is because they hate Trump so much, is, a large part to Trump provoking the shit out of them. And now it's because Trump is sucking, which they relish. Of course they do. They're sucking people. They want Trump to fail, right? Sure. Just like you want Joe Biden to fail. But he is failing, right? And so he said fucking obliterate. And so he said that he obliterated the nuclear program minutes after the bombs hit, without the smoke hadn't even cleared. It's the middle of the night, and Trump's like, "Yeah, we obliterated the shit out of them," and it turned out not to be true. And then his Pentagon, the guy's only been in charge now for, what is it, 5 months? I mean, when did he assume that position? Sometime in January. And so, 5 months worth of this guy's running what Trump now wants to call the Department of War. I mean, he just says stupid shit like that, right? He wants to change the Defense Department to the Department of War, which is like fucking, nobody's cool with that, bro. Nobody with fucking brain is cool with that. Why don't we call it the Department of Martial Law? Like fucking, like just, and, Trump is, his administration is already fucked, and this guy's the worst of the worst, because it's the Defense Department that's had 5 or 6 leaks, major leaks, or some kind of protocol issue. They invited a liberal porter into their fucking attack plans. I mean, just stupid shit. And some of the guys who are Trumpers, I mean, these aren't liberal Democrats that are in there. These are guys that don't like him and now don't like Trump or whatever. They hire a bunch of the people that like Trump and are really like Marjorie Taylor Greene and those types of personalities. The people that Lauren Boebert and these other people, they don't get along with anybody. The true Trumpers are fucking, nobody likes them. The people who love Trump and Trump puts around them, and they're ambitious, and they're shitty people, and they're pro-Trump, and nobody likes them, and they don't get along with each other. And then he hired a bunch of guys who were his guys and who were Trumpers, and they all turned on each other and turned on him and started to leak information. And he fired all of them. And now there's another bunch of leaks, and this other thing leaked, and it's coming from his administration. He's taking no responsibility for it. And so, all you have to say is, yeah, I shouldn't have said obliterate. But Trump never fucking admits he's wrong. It's always a victim. And so this is like where this has gone, right?
Efficacy of these strikes. You have to hope maybe they weren't effective.
Now, that's a major allegation. That press room that he is admonishing is full of Pentagon reporters who do some of the toughest reporting out there. People who have experience dealing with intelligence, military affairs, some people who end up going abroad sometimes, or their colleagues who serve in...
So I want to get to this one, because at some point here, that's what happened.
Civil clash at Fox, where, of course, Pete Hegseth most recently worked. Take a look at this exchange.
Jennifer, you've been about the worst, the one who misrepresents the most intentionally what the president says.
I'd like to say a word, if I may, Dana, about Jennifer Griffin, who was attacked by the defense secretary today, an attack she certainly, in my view, did not deserve. Her professionalism, her knowledge, and her experience at the Pentagon is unmatched. And I have had and still have the greatest regard for her. The attack on her was unfair.
Fucking Brett Hume. He's fucking, even Brett Hume turned on him. And so the Trumpers are starting to turn on Trump. We saw this with Candace Owens. And these are just people I know about. Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. I know there's more. People in the MAGA sphere who are out there who are, they really pro-Trump. But they're not down for this Iranian war and Israel puppeting us into another bullshit war. And eventually possibly World War III. And, there's people at Fox News now. And so, Trump has his dopes. That's all he's got. Like fucking... And as these things start to play out, there was something my wife sent me. I don't know if I have it up here. But it's FedEx is saying they had a decrease in packages. There's, coming international packages. And so... there's, these tariffs are going to start hurting people. When the tariffs start kicking in and Americans realize that things aren't going as well, in terms of their inflation and even just available goods, and that the tariffs are kind of hurting them economically, and then they see us getting into another war, and they see Trump just fucking speaking out of turn, right? And so... this thing with Hegseth, stop fucking leaking shit, right? Find out why people are leaking shit. Because you got a fucking sieve of a Defense Department of War, and you got the commander-in-chief who says to do stupid shit, and none of you guys push back on him, right? Like he just, the guy is not fucking he's not making good decisions out of intelligence. I mean, he blows off his intelligence briefings because he just thinks more. He doesn't want to, he's not somebody who's a deep thinker, right? He doesn't want to know. He's not a true seeker, right? And so, this is where fucking Trump administration's at. And, the intelligence leaks, I mean, all the things that I said in my last video, where they were saying, yeah, these guys don't have good intelligence and they're making assessments based on limited intelligence. Well, that's what Trump did the first night. He shouldn't have said we obliterated their sites. And the other issue is this. Israel doesn't want Iran not to be a threat anymore because Israel wants to feel like they're a victim, like that's their whole thing, that we're being victimized by all these other countries. And they're the Trump of the Middle East. They've provoked all these countries. These countries they themselves suck. I'm not saying MSNBC and CNN don't suck, and I'm not saying they don't have the negative version of Trump derangement syndrome, but Trump also has provoked these things. He's provoked all these various entities, the Democrats and the media, just like Israel's, they've participated in their own victimization. And they provoke things, and then there's a reaction, and then they claim to be a victim. And so Israel has people inside the government, and may or may not have leaked this. Israel has people, spies, people who are in the, Trump administration, people who are owned by them, who have influence over Trump. And they might have leaked this, because they didn't want Trump and to claim victory so that they would have to back down from Iran. Let's move to the camera guy here.
Well, Pete Hegseth was reported to have had such a severe drinking problem while working as a weekend morning host at Fox that he promised Republican senators that he would not drink if they voted to confirm him as Secretary of Defense. And so we're just going to
these two guys suck. Ari Meebler is smart, but he's really annoying. And this guy has gotten better over the years in terms of his ability to do this job. Like Jen Psaki, which I'll show you, she's still very tight and there's no flow to her speech. But these guys both really suck, and they're both really annoying and obnoxious, right? But they get to be able to say these things because that fucking actually happened. Pete Hegseth it was amazing that he got confirmed. There's a letter from his mom, his Christian Republican mom, out there to, with his ex-wife because he was being such a fucking lowlife. Like it was you're a lowlife piece of shit, son letter, right? And, all the information that came out about him. And he was just like, he didn't have any experience. It wasn't like he was some guy who was the right fit for the job. He was a Fox News morning show host that, was in the National Guard. One of my viewers said that, I am not really being fair to the National Guard. Part of the reason is I get my the National Guard goes through some sort of training, right? But it's not the same training as, like, say, Parris Island for Marines or these places, the kind of boot camp that the Marines go through, right? They're called weekend warriors, and they have been portrayed negatively. There's a movie called Southern Comfort. It's about these guys who go into Louisiana with fake bullets, and they are, they're weekend warriors. And they come up against some Cajuns, and they start getting killed and shit. And it's kind of a comedy. It's an old movie if you haven't seen it. And then how they were portrayed in the First Blood, the first Rambo movie. But, Pete Hegseth was somebody who was a weekend warrior and then didn't have any position, administrative position. And he's a drunk. Like, he's a fucking abusive drunk who's a womanizer, someone with addictive personality. And, his biggest qualification is he's a Trump taint licker. And he's not qualified for this job. And he's a fucking drunk on top of it, right? And then he found Jesus or whatever, God, and that was supposed to assuage these right-wing people. But now you have a situation where you're going up against so many Trumpers did not want these fucking bullshit wars and didn't want to pay more money to foreign governments when we're fucking up against it debt-wise and the rest of it. And they were supposed to be cutting the budget. And now you had the blowout with Elon Musk, who has basically disappeared. Whatever happened, whatever deal Trump gave him to keep his mouth shut. But the whole thing with Elon Musk was a fucking dud. And now you see a big spending bill that's dying a slow fucking death. Big beautiful fucking bill, which is gonna hurt Trump politically. And Hegseth now is out front as a guy who, all these character flaws and things that many Republicans, old school Republicans, and some of the media people were kind of shocked that Trump picked this guy and then got him through. And now all those things are out there, right? As this fucking thing turns into a debacle. And you can blame the left-wing media all you want and Trump derangement syndrome, but you guys are fuck-ups, right? And when you're fuck-ups, these guys get to gloat because then they don't have to make up shit or exaggerate shit about you. They just have to tell the truth, which is something they haven't been able to do for years.
To assume that Pete Hegseth was stone cold sober today when he said something that sounds like it belongs in the great Comedy Central TV series Drunk History.
President Trump directed the most complex and secretive military operation in history.
It's the kind of thing that wouldn't be surprising for him to say if he still had his job at Fox and was drunk at a hotel bar. In 2017...
See, he gets to mock people. Like, I can mock him for this hammer bullshit thing he did. Oh, there's one more thing here.
Defense.
President Trump directed the most complex and secretive military operation in history.
Now, some secretaries of defense...
Okay, so he's going to get into this whole thing. There's more of a stage here.
...by the bombing. No one in the American military has made that claim. And today, Pete Hegseth, in effect, seized the microphone when the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, was asked about the bombing damage.
General, on Sunday you said final battle damage will take some time. And you also said, I think BDA is still pending, and it would be way too early for me to comment on what may or may not still be there at the nuclear facility. That was just over 3 days ago. So what has changed? Would you use the term obliterated as well?
Sure, like I said, we don't do BDA. I'll refer that to the intelligence community. And
when you're talking with them, I mean, what changed in the past 3 days that make you so,
sir, I think I said...
I think I explained what changed. There was a great deal of irresponsible reporting based on leaks, preliminary information in low confidence. Again, when someone leaks something, they do it with an agenda. And
yeah, but you're a fucking Defense Department. It's a sieve. This is like the 6th or 7th, 5th or 6th. It's like so many leaks I can't even fucking remember. And you're 5 minutes into this, bro. Like fucking, how do you have a leak already? And if Trump didn't say obliterated, then a leak wouldn't even have mattered. And is the leak coming from Israel? Is somebody is there Israeli moles in your Defense Department? Like, because they don't want this thing to be done. And so, like fucking dude, like take responsibility. Like, is leaking just going to be a part of your Defense Department? These fucking leaks. Like, you're blaming the leaks like it's not your responsibility to make fucking sure there's no leaks. You had the signal fucking gate. And so, like, just stop the fucking leaks, right? And I don't give a shit about this. I'm not a pro-military fucking You know, I mean, I appreciate it for what it is, right? Like, but I mean, it's the military is inevitably turned on the people in every situation, in every empire. That's what happens. The military is turned against its own people, and that, right now we're so pro-military because we're, Europe's military, that whole thing I talked about in my last video. And I don't give a shit about this. But the people who do are often Republicans, so-called patriots. And leaking is a fucking, is a huge issue. And you're not a victim of your leaks. You're supposed to make sure there's no fucking leaks. Like, who leaked it? Like, you never get to the fucking bottom of these fucking leaks. You fired some of your buddies, or you rearranged some other ones, right, in the Pentagon, because you said they were all leaking, and they were all your guys. They were all Trumpers.
When you leak a portion of an intelligence assessment, but just a little portion, just a little portion that
just
makes
a little.
Seem like maybe the strike wasn't effective, then you start a news cycle, whether it's the Washington Post or Fox News or CNN or MSNBC. You start a news cycle that starts to call into question the efficacy. No, that's why. So you bring the chairman here, who's not involved in politics. He didn't do politics. That's my lane to understand and translate and talk about those types of things. So I can use the word obliterated.
I can use it. You can use it because Trump used it. But he's saying it's not obliterated. Your guy raising Cain isn't saying fucking it's obliterated. And I think raising Cain might think of sometimes obliterate. Here's another exchange here.
National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin. Jennifer Griffin, in her 18 years of experience covering the Pentagon, knows more about the Defense Department and its operations than Pete Hegseth might ever know.
Do you have certainty that all the highly enriched uranium was inside the Fordo Mountain, or some of it, because there were satellite photos that showed more than a dozen trucks there 2 days in advance? Are you certain?
Fuck. So they're just bullshitting, and they get pissed at the press when they call them on their bullshit, right? They said there's no evidence that they tried to remove this stuff.
None of that highly enriched uranium was moved.
Of course, we're watching every single aspect, but Jennifer, you've been about the worst. The one who misrepresents the most.
Her face is great right here. Look at her face.
You've been about the worst. The one who misrepresents the most intentionally. What the president says. I'm familiar.
Report about the ventilation shafts on Saturday night. And in fact, I was the first to describe the B-2 bombers, the refueling, the entire mission with great accuracy. So I take issue with that.
I appreciate you acknowledging that this was the
issues.
the most successful mission based on operational security that this department has done since you've been here, and I appreciate that.
It's the most successful mission with operational security. You've had a leak, bro. You had a fucking leak within fucking 10 minutes after the fucking bomb, a day after the bombs went off. You had a fucking leak. There's no operational security. You got fucking leakers. You mean you didn't invite somebody into the signal chat? Is that how it's the most successful operational security? You didn't have you didn't have OPSEC, as you called it, when some liberal fucking Trump-hating reporter was getting all the data, as some of your fucking one of your dopey motherfuckers over there included him into a chat group that he wasn't supposed to be in, right? And so
we're looking at all aspects of intelligence and making sure we have a sense of what was where.
Okay, look at how pissed she is. And so she's been about the worst. Let's go to this other one with Jen Psaki. So MSDNC, as Trump calls it, is by far the worst in terms of their reporters and their people. They're over the top. They're annoying. They're unlikable. It's like they got a whole bunch of Don Lemons over there. And they get to do this, right? Because they've been doing this for years, but now Trump is failing just the way they want, right? They do want him to fail, and he's delivering.
So there has been a scandal at the Pentagon every single day since January 25th. I mean, every single day. Because every day since January 25th, Pete Hegseth has been the Secretary of Defense. And some days, that scandal is more jarring than others. Like today, when the country and the entire world really turned to the Pentagon, tuned in this morning for an update on the outcome of the U.S. strikes on Iran. And instead, they got this meltdown.
In hunting for scandals all the time, in trying to find wedges and spin stories, this press corps and the press corps miss historic moments. Because
they miss historic moments.
You cheer against Trump so hard. It's like in your DNA and in your blood to cheer against Trump. So let's take half-truths, spun information, leaked information, and then spin it. Classified information is leaked or peddled for political purposes to try to make the president look bad. But just a little portion. Just a little portion.
You know, you're making it sound like the reporters should be like saying no to leaks. Is that your fucking position here? The reporters should say, no, don't tell me any leaks. Reporters live off leaks. Reporters like fucking, they get aroused by leaks. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like the reporters and the people who listen to them, leaks are everything, right? They get a leaker, like it's like, it's found gold. Like, what are you talking about? It's your job to make sure people don't leak shit. Right? You guys are leakers. You fucking leakers, these leakers. Like, what are you talking about, bro? It's fucking, your job to make sure people aren't leaking. It isn't their job to say, all right, we're not going to, oh, you're a leak, get away from me, leaker. And so it's, you run the defense department that is leaking shit for a reason, and you have no idea how to get a hold of it because you suck as an administrator.
That makes it seem like maybe the strike wasn't effective. If you want to know what's going on at Fort O, you better go there and get a big shovel.
That was...
What the fuck? You're expecting reporters to go to fucking Iran with a shovel and start digging out, penetrate into the Iranian military? If you want to know, go out there and go get a fucking shovel. So you don't know what the fuck's going on then. Because you don't got guys out there with shovels. You got Iranian people, Iranian military, whatever they are, talking about these things. Here's another one here.
But what's clear is that Pete Hegseth will say and basically do anything to keep the boss happy.
That's his one job. Here's Trump. Secretary Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, War. Pete Hegseth, together with the military. He's really pushing this fucking thing. Secretary of War. He wants the guy to be Secretary of War. And he doesn't understand why that's problematic. Together with the military representatives, will be holding a major news conference tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. The Pentagon in order to fight for the dignity of our great American pilots. These patriots were very upset after 36 hours of dangerously flying through the enemy territory. They landed and they knew the success was legendary. And then 2 days later, they started reading fake news by CNN and the failing New York Times. They felt terrible. Unfortunately for them, what kind of pussies are these guys that they're reading? These guys, again, these are imaginary things. Trump's just making this shit up. But if you're a fucking pilot and you drop these bombs and you're successful, and then you will go, but CNN said that it wasn't totally obliterated. This has nothing to do with the pilots. The fact that you're throwing these pilots out under the bus and saying that they're terribly upset. They're terribly upset? Like, are you guys okay? You're making them sound like they're liberal pussies. Are you guys okay? I know you guys just dropped some bombs and maybe killed some people. I know that, that there's dead people and destruction, and that you've dropped these bombs and destroyed this facility. But CNN is saying that it isn't obliterated. Are you guys okay? Are you guys okay? Let's go get you into therapy. Because me and CNN and fucking New York Times are saying that it might not be obliterated. You guys obliterated something, and they're not giving you credit for obliteration. They felt terribly. Fortunately for them, and as usual, solely the purpose of demeaning President Donald Trump, they felt terribly. Fortunately for them, and as usual, solely for the purpose of defeating President Donald Trump. The fake news, Times and CNN lied and totally misrepresented the facts, none of which they had because it was too soon. There were no facts out there yet. You're the one who said obliterated, motherfucker, like day one. Like totally clueless. I mean, is this a fucking joke? Like, I mean, how is this some psychological experiment to see how far they can push the stupidity and idiocracy for the American people and his followers to react? The news conference will prove both interesting and irrefutable in joy. Let her say something here.
What the assignment was. I mean, maybe Trump even told him directly. And Trump has spent the past few days calling for journalists who reported on U.S. intelligence to be fired.
Fake news reporters from CNN and the New York Times should be fired immediately. Bad people with evil intentions. Like, is this, I mean, you see, because he had some kind of psychological break, a reality break. I mean, does he actually think they're going to get fired for doing and reporting on something that's getting views? Does he think that, them getting the story out and having people be interested in it is going to cause them to be fired when he's the one who said obliterated, right?
Some of them by name, because that intelligence says his strike was not as successful as he claims. And he probably knew that he could get at least a few of his lackeys to go out there and do his bidding. Last night and this morning, Trump even promoted Hegseth's press conference, posted about it, which is not something he normally does, saying that the fake news had been lying and Hegseth would tell the truth. And then at today's press conference, Hegseth didn't provide evidence that the strike had successfully destroyed Iran's nuclear capabilities, because perhaps it doesn't exist. But he did aggressively attempt to shift the definition of success. That seemed to be part of his goal as well. Maybe a directed goal, who knows? As the New York Times put it, the briefing gave no new assessments of the state of Iran's nuclear program or the damage to the sites. Instead, the briefing focused on the planning and execution of those strikes. That is a classic case of moving the goalposts. Doesn't matter anymore if we destroyed anything.
Okay, so, it's a fucking mess. And you know why it's a mess? Because Trump had to say obliterated and had to say, yeah, it's over with. We got it done. I fixed it. When he had no evidence that it was obliterated, he had no evidence that he didn't move the nuclear materials, and no evidence that the strikes had done something so it totally obliterated their ability to make a nuclear weapon, right? He didn't have it. He just announced it like he always does. But now it's about fucking war and this kind of shit that people take serious, so-called patriots. And he's got caught fucking bragging about something and over-exaggerating and doing his grifting shit. And he's being taken to task for it. And he's got this fucking stooge out there who can't stop the fucking leaks from his fucking Defense Department. And, they dropped the bombs where they were supposed to drop them. And it did whatever damage it was going to do. But it wasn't like the end of the whole conflict between Iran and fucking Israel. And now he's wanting this thing to be over. And now he's, Israel's going to try to get us back over there. And this thing will blow over, we'll move on to something else. And so, and it'll, whatever time goes by. But we're going to war with Iran, like it's happening. Like it's not being stopped here. Here he is here.
According to Pete Hegseth, in line, starting the back and forth that led to the U.S. strikes. Clearly, Trump was not a fan of whatever intelligence or analysis Tulsi Gabbard had.
All right, this is whatever it is. Let's see what else. Let's go to the Don Lemon thing next. I just want to finish up there what I was saying about the Hegseth and Trump thing and the thing with Iran and those guys. It's a scandal of their own creation because the bombs more or less hit their targets. I mean, they hit their targets. And so if the bombs didn't go deep enough, if Iran moved some of their nuclear materials, things that are outside of their control, the operation was a success. But because Trump came in and bragged, and somebody leaked some of this, early assessments, and them becoming victim consciousness babies, right? The thing's imploded. And into some kind of a big thing. And it's constantly happening that they're just shooting themselves in the foot. Well, speaking of that, this is hypocrites. The hypocrisy's off the charts. That's that meme I always use. Don Lemon crushes MAGA crews and media in his epic return to live TV. Now, he's on here with Irie Meebler, but he's already come back to CNN and was on with Aaron Burnett to do with the interview with Elon Musk and some of these other things. And so he's been back on live TV. But, they're rewarding these people for sucking. Trump's getting rewarded. Trump did a shitty job, especially the end of his first term. I mean, he did a shitty job throughout, but it was really evident at the end of his first term. And they gave him a second term. And Don Lemon's got fired from CNN. They paid him $20 million to not be on their show anymore, to not be on their network. And somehow he's found an audience on the internet, and he's horrible. He's arguably the worst or the dumbest mainstream media personality out there. And now he's making the rounds.
You, in the book, among other things, talk about how Ice Cube has something in common with MAGA bros. That spoke to us. So reading from I Once Was Lost.
Yeah.
You say these right-wing power mongers conflate religious zeal with patriotism.
I once was lost, my search for God in America. Well, that's stupidity in itself, because God's within you. You don't look for God in America. You look for God within you. Now, this is a drunk, probably drug-using, definitely drunk, stupid person, and completely limited. And his capacity to find God in himself or feel God's love is, it's there in everybody. Everybody can do it because God's within everybody. But, there's lots of people who just can't. They don't have the ability for abstract thought. They don't have the ability to go down deeper. I once was lost. I mean, this is right-wing religious. Here it is.
Then they conflate
Right-wing powermongers conflate religious zeal with patriotism, then conflate patriotism with nationalism. That's, I once was lost. Just because people are talking about God doesn't mean that they have anything to do with God. I mean, not just for him, but all these people. But it's, he's not really looking for God. You're not looking for God. You're trying to demean the right wing for saying they're godly people and then be a piece of shit. And that's what all you guys do. Like all you guys in the mainstream media and politics and celebrity culture are all looking for something other than God. You're looking for fame, you're looking for recognition, you're looking for money, you're looking for power. And then you use God as a way to get it. You use the idea that you're a godly person or whatever it is to get it, right? To make people gravitate to you in some way. But what a horrible title to a book. It's fucked in the head like he is. It's imbecilic, right?
Patriotism with nationalism, Lemon writes, quote, with a charismatic wannabe despot as their front man.
Yeah.
They sample the Bible and the Constitution the way Ice Cube samples the Isley Brothers, and it was a good day.
There you go.
You hear it in there, but it's a whole new jam.
They do. They sample.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, they sample it, but they don't really. They don't get the full meaning of what it is. They're just using words, right? Not that Ice Cube does that. I'm not saying that, but that's. I'm using that as an example of how they don't really take what the Bible and what Christianity and what God is supposed to be about seriously. It has become what they want it to be about, and so they pick and choose. This is nothing new. They pick and choose different verses. And
how the fuck is this being talked about? Like it's silly, and it's not profound in any way, shape, or form. I know that people are so dumb now, and it's Idiocracy is set in. The fact that he has an audience is clearly an indication of that, right? But how the fuck is this being talked about? I mean, of course they do that. Like, it's been going on forever. People who aren't godly people, politicians particularly, and right-wing politicians, pander to their audience, and they're not really into it. Like when Joe Biden was doing this. I mean, Trump can't even quote the fucking Bible, right? I mean, he can't quote it. Like, what's your favorite verse? He says his favorite book, but he doesn't have a favorite verse. And he he doesn't know anything about it. Wouldn't put his hand on it when he's being sworn in. And, we know with Joe Biden, he wasn't, I mean, yeah, they say they're Christians because that's what they have to fucking say, right? Are you saying this is fucking groundbreaking? That politicians pretend to be Christians? That right-wing people aren't really Christians? The ones that are, they're not really following their Bible, right? They're just using it as a weapon? Wow. Fucking mind-boggling. You wrote a book about that? Like, that's what we talked about here?
Things from the Bible to go along with what they want. And it's been happening a lot more now, especially with Donald Trump. And who's become a deity.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
No, it hasn't happened more with time. I mean, not from him. He very seldomly talks about God. Not as much as George W. Bush, who claimed to be an evangelical. And so, like, what are you talking about? Like, and I don't see it with the MAGA people either. You don't see MAGA people talking as much about God as traditional right-wing right-wing Republicans did.
You care about faith, and it's a rich part of culture, but
you care about faith. Are you serious?
Concerned that faith is being transposed into what? Some sort of partisan mission?
Well, they're trying to make us into a theocracy, which was the whole reason behind the book.
Mm-hmm.
You've been seeing this. You've been covering it for a long
You're
time.
thinking he's trying to make you into a theocracy. He almost never talks about God. What, a theocracy? What are you talking about? Like, how do you see that? Like, in what world are you watching? What fucking movie are you watching? This is not, he is not somebody who is, Trump thinks of himself as a god, right? Trump thinks he's beyond that. Like, Trump elevates himself to this status, right? This is not him using religion. He's not a religious person at all. He didn't talk about religion on The Apprentice. He didn't talk of religion any other time in his public life. And he's brought it up a few times in a goofy way when he was trying to get the evangelical vote. And he had people praying over him, that weird fucking thing that they did. It was very performative. But as far as his embracing Christianity and making it into a theocracy, that's not happening. Like, it's, you could say it's a monarchy, you could say it's fascism, you could say a number of things here. But it's not a theocracy. And that's why you wrote the book? Your whole premise of the book is wrong, bro.
But I think it's even more so now. It's on steroids with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not just the president of the United States. He has become, especially after Butler, Pennsylvania, he has become a martyr. And instead of surviving,
Again, you know what? Do you really think that no one talks about Butler, Pennsylvania, including Trump, because it was fake as fuck. It's Ketchupgate, which you guys, didn't cover. And you can't, because there's all these other fake events. And if you start saying that's a fake event and that the Secret Service was in on it, then it puts question about all these other events, right? And, but he's not a martyr. Like, there's some people that still gravitate to that event, but almost everybody's forgot about it because it was fake. When something's fake, it doesn't last. People react. It's like, they don't have a reaction to it on a soul level. Everyone knows when things are on a soul level, a subconscious level, when things are fake. And so it doesn't register. It doesn't have the same emotional reaction. It doesn't have the same staying power. And he's not talking about it. Some of his cult people bring it up once in a while. Some of these people, someone like Joe Rogan or somebody, Tucker Carlson, brings it up on their show or like whatever, but it doesn't hit. It doesn't register. There's no energy in it. Like, he's just so silly, right? I got some great clips from him coming up, like just in a way to kind of show you like some of the other stuff's going on in the Lemon world.
Alleged attempt, he has become really, it's about a resurrection now. And he has been chosen by God to lead America and lead the world. And
yeah, that's not the narrative. I mean, there's some MAGA people that may believe that, but it's not a narrative that fits, right? It's not one there's no energy in any of these things. He's totally clueless. He's just making things up, right? Like he's so distorted in his ability to perceive what's going on around him in a way that's stunning that he was ever on CNN in the first fucking place. because he's supposed to. I mean, they must have handled the shit out of him, because the shit he says on his own show now is so lame and so remedial that they must have been like just completely covering for this guy in his takes and the things that he said.
What has happened since the 1970s or 1980s with the moral majority and the religious right and pushing religion into politics, it is even more so dangerous, more so dangerous for our country. I mean, look at what Ted Cruz said the other day, that he came to Washington with an express interest to do what? To support Israel, which is about...
Right, he spoke about it in messianic terms. You want to get into that?
Which is about religion, right? And
you know how this works, Don.
We're not supposed to do that.
You know how this works around here, because you've been doing it a long time.
All right, let's go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Roll the tape.
There we go.
Let's roll Ted Cruz.
I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Holy shit, he said this? I want to cover this. I have this up. It's kind of epic, but you fucking said that shit, Ted Cruz? I mean, like, fucking Bible sucks. The Old Testament particularly. Not the New Testament, but the Old Testament sucks. The New Testament is good, but not great. Like, it's, in terms of spiritual teaching. And so, for Christians, you grow up in a Christian house in a Christian country, and you are just told that it's great, right? That the Bible's everything. Because that's all you got. You got a book, because it's 2,000 years since Christ was around. He didn't leave a method to connect to God. And if he did leave a method, they don't want you to do the method. Because it's a religion that wants you to believe that the only way to get to heaven is through the Son. Which means you have to commit to the religion itself. And they represent Jesus, right? Which is something they don't. Because Jesus isn't happy with what... I mean, how could Jesus be happy with what the Christian religions have done, right? In terms of distorting his teachings, in terms of manipulating people, the Crusades and all these things that he's not for. I mean, there was a time where the Catholic Church had a standing army. There was Christian armies and shit, right? And so all these things. But the Bible itself, the Old Testament, misrepresents what the Jewish religion misrepresents what God is. They make God into a demon, a narcissistic, petty, butthurt demon who's constantly punishing his people and telling them to do shit like go destroy the Canaanites, and a very warlike fucking piece of shit that's not a god or not even a spiritual person, but a demon. Like the God of the Old Testament is a demon. I mean, they're pretending it's God, they're calling it God, but it's a demon. What they're describing is a demonic presence that's petty and evil and narcissistic. And Jesus was like, at some point went to India, and and I'm not comparing my journey to his, but similar experiences growing up, in a religion. And he said, Jesus, said this stuff about, the kingdom of heaven's within. These are teachings that weren't a part of his local region. No one was saying king of heaven was in. That doesn't exist in Judaism. But he went to India, which isn't that far off. He learned some of the yogic teachings and traditions, and he came back and imparted some of these, bare basic principles to the people who gravitated to it because their religion sucked. You have a punishing, wrathful God who's got an ego and, and he's pissed off, and he ordering fucking people to kill their kids and their own kids and shit like this, right? Ordering sacrifices. God doesn't want you to sacrifice something. Any religion that says you should sacrifice a goat or sacrifice a sheep or sacrifice a person, you're not dealing with God. Because God is in everybody and everything. People have to die, but you don't kill people for God. Like, it's the stupidest fucking thing ever, right? And so it's full of shit. Like, there's a lot of stuff in there that's anti-God, and it's just blasphemy. And he said the stupid shit here, right? Classic Ted Cruz.
Cursed. And
go back here.
Taught from the Bible. Those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of it, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
So you're saying we should be skeptical of people who want a theocratic foreign policy and want other people to serve and maybe die for it.
I'm saying something, yes, but I'm saying something very.
Yeah, but Don Lemons, you say you're a Christian, right? Like he says he's a Christian. That says that shit in your book. That says that very thing in your book. And Ted Cruz is a piece of shit and a dumbass, is reading from your fucking book, right? And so if you believe in the book, then you should believe, don't pretend you're a Christian and deny parts of the book, because you can't cherry pick your fucking teachings. There's people that came in and distorted the teachings of Jesus, edited them and changed them, because Jesus was no longer into this stuff that they're saying, the book stuff, right? I mean, turn the changing tables over, the Pharisees, the temple, because he was over it, right? He realized that this was not he was telling the truth about his bullshit religion. He realized his religion was full of shit, right? And so, you can't demean Ted Cruz and then claim to be a Christian. This is from the book of Genesis, Numbers 29:9, Genesis 49, Genesis 12:3. I got the hiccups for some reason. The nation is like a mighty lion. While it's sleeping, no one dares wake it. Whoever blesses Israel will be blessed, and whoever curses Israel will be cursed. Okay, so listen to the smattering of applause. Politics and prose, bookstore and coffee house. I saw this thing on Shark Tank, and it's this straw that somehow it helps you get rid of hiccups when some person figured this out, and it actually works, because I don't have hiccups anymore. Here's the applause.
Chronicled her DOJ experiences and provided a first-hand account of injustice and ineptitude in the judicial system. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Don Lemon and Laura Coates.
Was there like 5 people there? There's nobody there. Like, that's less than 20 people.
Hello. Boy, you guys have traffic here.
It's crazy.
Wow.
It's because of you. You were a showstopper.
Thanks for coming out.
There's like less than 20 people. There's probably less than 15 people there. Like 12. I would say 12.
How are you doing? Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
So there's nobody there, right?
I'm so happy you're here.
Man, we're here with Don Lemon. When life gives you lemons. There you go. We're making lemonade. Hey, Don Lemon.
Love.
This is my mentor and my friend, and I'm so happy to see you again. You look good.
Thank you.
Also, the cover looks good.
Thank you.
It looks good like you in person.
A little tan.
I see it. No, you look rested. You look like you are happy. You look like you are joyous, and I'm going to bring it all out tonight.
Can I tell you the truth in this picture?
Yes.
They had it airbrushed so much. I was like, I don't recognize it. I had them take the airbrush off. I was like, I don't need the airbrush. And so...
Wait a minute, Don. Not so fast, Don.
Don't you think? I mean, I was like...
You're totally, you need the metaphorical airbrush. I mean, they airbrushed you at CNN, because you without CNN is like, so stupid. Not that you weren't stupid on CNN. You were definitely stupid. But you're so much stupider on your own. Like they were handling you in such a way.
I look like I was 12. But
I mean, okay, it says the man, that's a bad thing apparently. Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. Well, I'm sorry you look so good on your picture. You didn't know it. I don't see the airbrush. You look good.
It looks fake. Thank you very much. And so do you. You look amazing.
Well, I don't wear any makeup now, so.
You know what I call you, right? Because I see your backdrop on our show.
Yeah.
You're the new Larry King. I call you Laura King. That's a good thing.
Hold on, let me do this. Well done. Tell me about what? Tell you what. I mean, I wore suspenders my very first show.
Caller, you're on the air.
Sure. I'm trying. Wouldn't you guys like to have collars, live collars, right, for the show? Would that be fun?
She's wearing something like eyeliner, fun
to do that again? I think so. Yeah. It is LCL, but
you got to be careful these days. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, let's not. Well, hopefully, we'll be careful tonight. But I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you very much.
And I tell you, of all of Don and I's come to Jesus moments we've had, all of our moments, I don't think I ever fully appreciated your faith and how much it guided you in your life until I read this book. I mean, it is
This book is about his faith.
unbelievable. It really is. And I cannot wait for you all to read it in full, or if you haven't had a chance to, you're going to be blown away by this book because Don.
You never talk about God in a way. Like all the times I've heard Don Lemon, and I've heard him a lot. I've never heard him talk about Jesus. There's a clip out there where he says that Jesus wasn't perfect, which isn't a part of the Christian teachings, but he's claiming to be a Christian, and Ted Cruz is rightly quoting from the Bible. And that's your book. Like, that's what it says in your book, and your book is everything, right? For Christian people, they have nothing but a book and some symbology, because there's no real techniques. In any spiritual practice, just like, when I went to graduate school, the first class was about talking about the different models of psychology. And there was like 6 or 7 points that would be discussed. The teacher put this together, the woman who was running the school, and she put together a good way of how you would assess the psychological model, like behaviorism, or like Freudianism, and Carl Jung, these different models of psychology. And they would describe how like there was one thing would be what are human beings, like what's the view of the psychology of human beings. Like for behaviorism, it would be cause and effect, right? Skinner's, Pavlov's dog, and these things. Stimulus and response. And if they wanted to extinguish something, they would punish it. And if they wanted to encourage something, they would reward it, right? Rewards and punishment, cause and effect, very remedial way. So how do they think human beings are? How do they think healing happens? How do they, describe the healing process? What are the methods that they use? These things, right? And it was a good way to assess something, because everything needs to have, it's what the beliefs are, right? And so in Christianity, the belief is that Jesus is God's only son, and he came here, died for your sins, and you just have to accept him. So the method is accepting Jesus and you get to heaven. And the goal is to get to heaven. That's the goal. So like there's these types of things, right? You have to have a goal, and you have to have a method to achieve that goal, and you have to understand what life's about. And life is that you're born a sinner, and that you can't be anything but a sinner, but Jesus died for your sins, and so if you accept him, you'll be able to go to heaven. And that's the whole thing, right? That's, when you read the Bible, and the Bible tells you what's up, and that's it. And very little to the religion, right? In terms of your own personal practice, in terms of these things, it's, it's a money-making scam and a, power organization. There's not anything in terms of what you need to do on a daily basis. There's prayers, there's a rosary prayer, some of these things like this. But they're not really a method to connect to God, right? Maybe you pray to connect to God, but really there's this third party of Jesus and a second, fourth party in the church that are in between you and your connection to God, right? So there's no method, and you have to have a method. You have to have a reasonable method in how you achieve, your spiritual goal, like just with everything else, right? And so the Christians really just have this book, and the book isn't even written by Jesus. And half the book was a religion that Jesus left behind. But in that, if you're a Christian, that's what you believe. And Don Lemons is shitting on Ted Cruz, and they're shitting on Ted Cruz here, but they actually fucking, he claims to believe in the book, right? And Ari Miebler is Jewish, and he would believe in the same thing, because it says the same thing. This is the Hebrew Bible. This is the original. It comes from the original Bible for Jewish people, whatever that's called. I forget the name for it. And so this stuff that they're reading is a part of their book, right? It's part of the Jewish Bible, and then the Old Testament in Christianity. So let's go back here.
Taught from the Bible. Those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
So you're saying we should be skeptical of people who want a theocratic foreign policy and want other people to serve and maybe die for it.
I'm saying something, yes, but I'm saying something very simple.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be a separation of church and state. We're not supposed to be governing based on religious values or what the Bible says. That should be frightening. And I am a believer. I'd say I'm a believer. I am a Christian. But I do believe in the separation of church and state, and I don't think that I should be pushing my religion, my values onto laws in this country, especially if I'm a lawmaker.
Okay, so again, this guy's Jewish. He believes in what Cruz said, if he believes, if he's actually practicing his Judaism. And this guy says he's a Christian. Now, in terms of separation of church and state, that's not what Ted Cruz is talking about here. Ted Cruz is irrelevant. He's a fucking joke. You know, this thing, Tucker Carlson took him down for being a dope about this thing in Iran and these things like this, right? But, you know, the separation in church and state wasn't, you know, you had freedom of religion here, which you have. But your religion and your connection to God, and if you're talking to people about voting for you and your connection to God, it's about what you believe. And Ted Cruz believes, and again, he's a lying piece of shit, that people who, you know, the government of America, if it blesses Israel, will be blessed. And because he believes in the Bible, and his people who are voting for him believe in the Bible, right? And these evangelicals. And so, you know, him believing in that and that affecting his stance on in Israel is not a mixture of church and state, right? Because if you're a Christian, your Christian beliefs are going to affect what you're doing as a person. And that's not necessarily, the conflating church and state. It's not, it's not separating church and state. Separating church and state is like making people go to church, like forcing them to be Christians, right? Making policies, you know, putting the Bible in public schools and making kids have to read the 10 Commandments and shit like that, right? That's you know, policy and laws and things. Foreign policy, you know, your beliefs are going to affect your foreign policy. If you don't like Israel, you don't like Iran, you know, you have, you know, your grandfather was, you know, murdered by a suicide bomber who was Iranian, something like that, which didn't happen, but just, you know, like something like that, right? And you have a grudge against Iran, it's going to affect you. If you're an angry, hateful person and you don't like Muslims, right, you know, for whatever reason, that's going to affect your foreign policy. If you're a Muslim person, your beliefs in your religion is going to affect your attitudes and how you vote. You know, you're electing a Christian or a Muslim, and so that's going to skew the way they look at it, right? And so that's not, you know, this has nothing to do with church and state. This is him believing in the Bible, right? And if you really believed in the Bible, do you want America to be cursed? Again, it's bullshit, but do you want America to be cursed? Like, if you really believe that shit, well, let's make sure America doesn't get cursed. Holy shit.
Let me turn to something that I know people want to hear you on.
Yes,
because
sir.
People like that you keep it a buck, right? We're going to get Dawn. We're going to get what you think, right?
All right, you're blacker than me.
I don't have a comment on that. I have no comment on that.
No, you're more Jewish than he is.
Left me speechless.
You keep it a buck.
On live TV. You keep it a buck.
All right.
People know we're going to get the real, right?
Yes.
We're going to get the reals. You keep it a buck. Look at these guys. Look how street they are. You know, look how they're totally street.
Real.
There is a double standard. Donald Trump benefits from it from the traditional media, which you've been a part of.
Yes.
And the digital media, which you're now a new leader in.
A new leader in digital media.
President before him, Barack Obama, said something about this recently. I want to play. Take a look.
Imagine if I had done any of this. Imagine if I had pulled Fox News' credentials from the White House press corps. Imagine if I'd said to law firms that were representing parties that were upset with policies my administration had initiated that...
Okay, yeah, but if you did that, it would have went against your brand. I mean, they could say whatever. Trump gets away with this because he came in as an outsider. I know more better than than the media and the regular politicians, and he campaigned on anger and these things. His supporters want him to do that. Your supporters wouldn't have wanted you to do this. Your supporters wanted you to be intellectual and less aggressive and less insulting and less of an asshole than Trump. So it's like silly to say that this is two equal things, because your brand is completely different than Trump's brand, right?
You will not be allowed into government buildings. It's unimaginable that the same parties that are silent now would have tolerated behavior like that from me.
Is he right? Is there a double standard?
Of course there's a double standard. Yeah, there's a double standard for him, and there's a double standard for women. Yeah, it's a double standard. I mean, just imagine.
Just imagine. The double standard is not what you're talking about here. Like, you guys treat Trump way worse than Fox treated Obama. I mean, you guys are way more obsessed with him. I mean, it's not, Trump has provoked it. Like, Obama was trying to be more of a, less aggressive, less, out there, less, more mild.
Donald Trump doing half of the things. Imagine, Barack Obama doing half the things Donald Trump does. Imagine Barack Obama saying the F word.
Today.
Oh my gosh, do you remember when he put his feet?
Yeah, but none of these, you're talking about so many years later, because now nobody gives a fuck. Like, Obama could say the F word, and the Democrats could, right? Now, the Republicans would go off because they always do. Just like you guys go off on Trump, but nobody gives a shit. It doesn't affect anything. Like, what Trump realized is he can just bully his way and do his shit, and there's no real consequences. I mean, there's no consequences. There's no, the media doesn't mean anything anymore, and people don't get outraged anymore, and no one gives a shit, right? But let's go to this. So Don Lemons is being seen as a serious person here, right? Let's take a look at something that just popped up yesterday. This must have been from a month or two ago when the deportations were happening.
You need to go with me. You need to go with me. Come on, let's go. Imagine someone walking up to you like this with a mask on. You don't know who they are. They don't identify themselves.
I mean, this is so great. Let's start over.
You need to go with me. You need to go with me. Come on, let's go. Imagine someone walking up to you like this with a mask on. You don't know who they are. They don't identify themselves. And then all of a sudden you end up in the back of a car handcuffed. What is going on in America? That is not what we do here. We don't sit outside of courtrooms and wait for people like vultures so that we can arrest them and throw them in jail. We believe in due process. So,
do we believe in that?
So stand up, everyone, and stop this bullshit.
Okay, so what do you expect from your dopey viewers, your double-digit IQ viewers? Like, these are people so stupid that they look at you as being somebody who's cracking the code. They look at you like as somebody who sees through the bullshit. And so look at this. He's got these dead eyes, right? So your viewers are so stupid that they think you're a truth teller. They think you're worth listening to. And so what do you expect these stupid-ass people who, I mean, if they just don't bump into shit, it's like a fucking miracle. And what do you expect from them? I mean, anybody who thinks that their audience is going to do something, if you're listening to me, other than the spiritual stuff that I talk about, connecting to the divinity within, which will change you and change, if you do it correctly, and change the world for the better, there's nothing anybody can do now. I mean, maybe boycott, if you could actually organize a boycott that would work, but I don't even know if that would work anymore. And so there's nothing you can do. Like, things are just going to happen, and it's just out of everyone's control. There's nobody with any power to change anything, including, the people behind Trump and the powers that be. We're in where things are just going to happen. And certainly you doing that isn't going to get your audience out there to, like, if you don't, what's your solution, Don? You have no solutions. You know, stop this bullshit. Like, that's not a solution.
Like vultures so that we can arrest them and throw them in jail. We believe in due process. So stand up, everyone, and stop this bullshit.
Okay. What do you mean stand up? You literally mean just to stand up? Because you didn't give a method and a way for people to change something, because you don't have one. You don't have a way to stop Trump. You guys have no fucking way of stopping Trump from being Trump. And until the Democrats take over the House and the Senate, Trump is going to go full Trump. And all your fucking whining about isn't going to change fucking shit, right? But that was just a fucking joke. Like, this silly little fucking dude here, right? So this is a lemon drop. It's got 15,000 views. And he is talking about getting 750,000 subscribers, but he's really at 747,000 subscribers. You know, that thing he did with Laura Coates, who is a, person I think still on CNN. She had her own show for a while. I don't know what she has now. And she's doing an interview with Don Lemons in a Washington, D.C. bookstore. And they get like 15 people or less, 12 people, or whatever. And they, and he's sitting there talking. What, he's going to sell 12 fucking books? And he goes on the Ari Meebler show. Like, I don't know how many people actually watch any of this stuff. I think Don Lemons must buy views and subscribers because he doesn't get very many comments. But here he is.
Hi, everyone. Different sort of Substack. This was a little bit uncomfortable, but something that I felt that I needed to be said because I'm sort of touting what I've done or talking about myself. So, but anyway.
Oh, my God. You're claiming that you don't like that shit? That you're not narcissistic?
I think this is important because I think it's a lesson. There are lessons here for everyone. And that is, we have reached 750,000 subscribers. And I believe that you need to celebrate every single success. And we have done it on our own as an independent media company.
Okay, so I don't think you've done it on your own because I don't think you have that many subscribers. Certainly it doesn't translate into views, right? So he's got 250,000 subscribers. And his views, I mean, he has views. Like, he does have some sort of an audience. And he does have some comments. So it isn't like it's all made up. But, I've talked about with Heartfulness. They have these videos on Heartfulness, and they'll be like, they'll say they have 70,000 views or 100,000 views or 20,000 views, or they get 3,000 views, and they all get 18 comments in every one. They get the same amount of comments. And the comments are Pranham's dodgy. They're not even like anything quoting him or saying, oh, this made real, they're not like real comments. Like, if you look at my comment section, there are people who are happy about things that I've said, said, jokes that I've made and talking about specific points that are in the video. Like, they're, listening to it and reacting. Some people are getting butthurt about it. I ban those people, but they do. It's people say it. Like, and that's, people who are watching the videos and reacting to what's being said. And then you have people who just go, and it's good for the algorithms, but, there's other comments that are just emojis and things like that, right? And, in Heartfulness, the comments are like that, right? 18 non-substantive comments to a video that says it's got all these views. So they're buying views. Now, Don Lemons is probably making enough money to keep his show going on, and he's touting success. He got that goofy award. But, his shit is horrible. Like, there's a lot of bad content out there, but he's just, everything he says is mockable. It's just, he doesn't hit on any, and the stuff that he's right about is remedial.
Really, a lot of it has been our success has been sheer force. We willed it into existence. So what a year. This is what
do you mean it willed it into existence?
I want to put here to show you. Bet on yourself. What this year has taught me and what a year it has been. Okay? So I'm going to...
Okay, so this is the story. Don Lemons was the 9 o'clock slot on CNN. He had rose through the ranks. You know, they need to get people of color and gay people, you know, in prominent positions on these liberal media shows. And he was both. He was a gay black man, which he's talked about quite a bit. And so, you know, it checked a few boxes, right? And, you know, Chris Cuomo's had a real audience. And he'd lead into Don Lemons. And Don Lemons, during the Trump years, did okay by CNN standards. But then, you know, the internet took over and people got tired of Trump during Biden. And, you know, Chris Cuomo's got fired. And Don Lemon was out there and he started to get goofy. And his show was already doing poorly. And they were like, all right, we'll move you to the morning show, which Don Lemons called he called it, and when I'm done with the segment, I'll do the memes. But he called it a fucking promotion. He said he was being promoted. And fucking nobody believed that, right? And then he pissed off his co-hosts. He said anti-woman things to feminist women. And they got into it with him. He had a disastrous interview with Vivek Ramaswamy. And those fucking, you know, that thing. And he had a number of, they suspended him for a while. And they were like, all right, fucking, we're firing you because you just suck so bad. And they gave him $20 million. And so with $20 million, he set up a news studio. And first he tried to get a deal with Elon Musk. And then he interviewed Elon Musk. And he did such a shitty job that Elon Musk realized this guy's a fucking moron and didn't want to pay him. He wanted $8 million and a Tesla truck as his negotiating deal. So he's on his own. And now he's blown out on Twitter because he's a fucking moron. He pissed Elon Musk off. And so then he's out, but he's using that as a way to get the info about his show out, saying that he's being censored by Musk. When Musk just didn't want to pay him to be on Twitter. He wasn't censoring him. He still had a show. He still had the ability to go on the app. And so then YouTube, which promotes shit like this, because I see it all the time, right? You know, it's really stupid, but YouTube doesn't give a shit. You know, this is the kind of shit that they promote. Someone who used to be famous. And so coming in with $20 million in his staff and trying to set up his own newsroom and then realizing that people just wanted him to be in his living room and do the podcast mold. I mean, he slammed Joe Rogan and these other people, but then he's copying all of us. You know, he slammed the truth community. And he came out and he made this shitty show and he has some kind of an audience and following. And it's no big deal. Like, of course it's going to be successful. If you're famous and you start something like this and you have some following on like mainstream platforms, you know, there's all these guys who used to be ESPN hosts that all have podcasts now. You know, people that used to be on ESPN when I watched it years and years ago. You know, those guys like, well, I can't think of their names right now, but the Ian Fuego guy and there's, you know, these other, and then, you know, all these people who, you know, they get fired from ESPN and now they just do a podcast. You see with Katie Couric, you see it with Megyn Kelly. You know, you can squeeze out a little bit of audience. You don't have any fucking overhead. And you can talk about things that you couldn't talk about. You can be more of yourself. And you're not constrained by the gatekeepers in your networks and things like this, right? Dan Patrick is one of those guys, you know, the ESPN guys. They all got their things. They show up and they get promoted because they're famous people. And they can pay for promotion, but they don't have to. YouTube and these platforms love those types of people that already come in with a following and are known entities. And they're also, they've been passed through they've passed through the gatekeepers. So they're not going to promote somebody that's going to be that controversial. And so, all these things, right? And Don Lemons is one of these people that came in with an audience. It's, of course he should have lots of subscribers,
Go through this and I just want to read some of it and I'm going to react to it. So when I first stepped into the world of streaming, there it is.
Look at him. Like you don't want to blow your own horn, but here you are sitting on your throne in a tuxedo with 750,000. Like I don't want to talk about myself and my success.
150,000 subscribers. There it is. So thank you from Don Lemon and the Don Lemon Show. When I first stepped into this wild world of streaming, it was 15 months.
Upgrade to paid. He wants you to upgrade to paid. Now, let's go back a little bit so we don't miss that. You know, the thing about it is no guarantee of any of this would work. Of course it was going to work. You'd have to have no audience for it not to work. Because, again, you're making straight money without a fucking overhead. He's got like 2 staffers, right? He's got one guy who holds his camera when he does his goofy shit on the street. You might only have one producer, one person. And all these people hire a producer and they have a podcast, athletes and all these other people. It's a side hustle and they're making enough plus they get advertisers to pay them, right? They get people to pay for their advertising. Like he's making it sound like he fucking cracked them all. This already was created for you by thousands of other famous people who have already fucking done this. Like you're not doing anything here. And you don't even know what you're doing because you fucking came in and tried to do a news show.
This wild world of streaming, it was 15 months ago now. I didn't even know what would happen. I had no roadmap. I had no guarantee that any of this would work. And I had just left.
Like, it's so fucking stupid. Of course it was going to work to some extent. You were going to have an audience. All these other people are doing this, and they're making more money than they made. Well, maybe not in terms of CNN, but there's not all the fucking, the stress of it, right? You can shoot from your own home.
CNN. I'd been there for nearly 17 years, almost 2 decades in corporate America. And let me just tell you, when you have spent that long inside a system with all the infrastructure, with all the security, all of that stuff, all of the steady rhythm of it, you're taught that to believe that the brand, the logo, the building, that's what matters, right? You get so indoctrinated into that. That's what matters. And then one day, the building is no longer yours. That's what happened to me. The cameras, the sets, gone. The security badge.
He's just reading this thing.
Doesn't work anymore. And all you've got left is yourself.
Holy shit. If Don Lemons never was on CNN and he came out and had a show, no one would watch it. He would not have had an audience. I mean, he's, what he's saying, like there's so many people on the internet. And so CNN is the only reason that gives this guy some legitimacy. But oh my God, like he thinks like he's fucking, you didn't know any of it. We've created this thing. And the people in the truth community created it before the Joe Rogans and these people started to benefit from it. Independent people who just said, all right, I'm going to go out and tell my truth on the internet and express my opinions, make my own content. And all of us that did this, years before you guys got into it, all the people that did this created this thing for you guys to come in with your fucking, and then they wanted to move to more legitimate, with authoritative people that were more handled and more, they would just say the same old bullshit they used to say on CNN or MSNBC or Fox. And so then they started pushing those fucking guys. But I mean, you had nothing to do with this. Like, you failed your way into having success, again, failing upwards. You left CNN or you got fired from CNN only to have something that was waiting for you here just based on the fact that you had some people, followers in your platforms. You had fans.
All you have left is yourself. It was daunting for me, to say the least. I had no corporate net, no nightly platform. Just my voice, a video camera, a deep conviction that there were still stories to tell and power to hold to account. And I also there were certain things that I could not do because contractually. So I had to figure out a way to make it work. But here's the thing. You're never really alone. You're never really alone. First and foremost, I had my husband, Tim, who never doubted for 1 second that I could take on this next chapter.
He didn't doubt that you would be able to have a following on fucking the internet.
I had my mom, my rock. I had my sister, Ema, watching me from above every day now. And every night she used to watch me then when I got started. And she's the one that told me that I was going to be bigger, she said, than when I was at CNN. Those were
her words? When she said that from heaven?
Words. And she said that she said, don't stop what you're doing. Don't stop what you're doing. And if you are a Lemonhead, or if you are part of the Elimination, you know that my sister died in this year that I've been doing this. And she was my number one fan. But now I know she's my number one angel.
Boom. She's the number one angel. Just don't quote the Bible, though. Don't believe in the Bible.
Guardian angel watching over me. And of course, I had my three dogs, Boomer, Barkley, and Gus Gus, keeping me.
Gus Gus was a real prick.
Grounded and keeping me laughing. And then I also had the people around me who believed in my.
Okay, so this is fucking horrible. He's just reading a Substack piece of shit thing he's done here. And, he has fucking, I talked about this recently, if you guys saw the interaction I had with ChatGTP and Gemini. And I, was told what to do. And one of those things was to get on Substack, which I wanted to do, but I'm not that kind of person that's just going to go the extra mile with shit that just drains the shit out of me. Interacting with people, doing live videos and reading people's comments. And, if I got to do all that bullshit that has nothing to do with the value of what is inside of me that I can say here. The value of this channel is me, having a different point of view. The dyslexia, my life experience, the Saj Marg meditation, all the things, the humor that I've had over my comedic perspective, the insights I have, the introversion, the journey that I've been on, all the things that are inside of me that make what I have to say interesting or not, right? And that to me is like what is enough. Like if I got to go kiss ass and, pander and, tell people how great they are and try to, I'm not a social person. I'm not looking for popularity. Like either I have something valuable to say or I don't. But, there's ways that I could, maximize what I'm doing. Of course, the internet, the YouTube is rigged against people like me now anyhow, right? But if you had a staff member, if I had somebody who was, if I had somebody who would do all the little things for me, my website, I can build my website back, do all the things. Like do leave no stone unturned. I'm not that kind of person. Like I just, all that kind of stuff that's busy work. And it's important. Like, I could grow my viewership and to some degree by doing all those things. But my content would suffer. And, because I just have so much energy every day. I could take days off and not make content, but I have things to say every day. And, I can make a video, I could make 8 hours of content. Like, if I had the energy for it, in terms of the ideas are there. As soon as I start seeing things, there's a flood of, information that flows through me, the connection to the divine and these things, right? And so, I'm like putting the emphasis on the content. But if you had staff members to do all that, like Don Lemon didn't know what fucking Substack was. He didn't know how to do any of these things. He had people set it up for him and do all that shit. He just has to go out and say his stupid shit that for some reason there's some people that believe it's worth listening to. And that's why I'm covering all this, because, the system is rigged for stupidity. The system is rigged for stupidity. That's the name of this fucking video. And you see it. Like, stupid people are failing upwards all the fucking time now. In the age of idiocracy, the system is rigged for stupid people. And Don Lemons and Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump are just examples of this. There's not much difference between Pete Hegseth becoming Secretary of War after doing a shitty job at Fox, basically getting fired from Fox from the shitty morning show that they do, Fox and Friends, a fucking stupid-ass show, and Don Lemons getting fired from his morning show, and both these guys landing on their feet because the fucking system is rigged for stupidity. Anyways, let me wrap this one up here. before I do, let me show you all my Don Lemon memes. All of his wonderful memes from his show.
I think we have to stop coddling people when it comes to this and the vaccine, saying, oh, you can't shame them. You can't call them stupid. You can't call them silly. Yes, they are. The people who aided and abetted Trump are stupid because they believed his big lie. The people who are not getting vaccines, who are believing the lies on the internet instead of science, it's time to start shaming them. What else? Or leave them behind. Because they are keeping the majority of Americans behind. There's nothing fake about CNN. The person who writes everything that comes out of my mouth, not everything, but the things that make sense. Susan Lay is great. I was not demoted. None of that. This is an opportunity. This is a promotion. This is.
Are you guys hammered? Oh my God! Are you guys hammered?
No. Boo-hoo. Ooh, cancel culture. Think twice. Yeah, I said it. The hypocrisy is off the charts, and it is sickening.
Don Lemon said really stupid shit, like clueless shit, like incoherent shit. Like, where did he come up with that kind of thing? He is oblivious to reality kind of stuff, which is very prevalent in our society and prevalent in the media, and he takes it to a whole other level of stupidity. And, Pete Hegseth is clearly a Republican version of Don Lemon's. And, of course, Trump. I mean, the system is rigged for stupidity. That's not just in terms of the people that are presenting stupidity, but the people who are, the viewer. Like, they've just dumbed shit down and tried to bring as many people down to a lower level of consciousness as possible. I mean, not just through media, but through everything. And it's worked. Like, Idiocracy has happened. And it's pretty obvious. Like, this is obvious evidence of Idiocracy in full effect. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's paramount, definitely important for the apocalypse. And the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.